We are grateful to all of you who have come this evening to attend the sixth, is it? Seventh Kaul Memorial Lecture organized by Raza Foundation in collaboration with the India Habitat Center. Kaul was a path-breaking filmmaker. He carved out such a difficult path that not many people walked on it. And he was a very good friend. He was deeply interested and knowledgeable about not only cinema, but literature, visual arts, music. We organize 8 annual memorial lectures devoted to music in the name of Kumar Gandharv, theatre in the name of Habib Tanveer, cinema in the name of Kaul, ideas in the name of Daya Krishna, literature in the name of Agye, dance in the name of Kelucharan Mahapatra. And these lectures are organized here, and we are very grateful that Aruna Vasudev, in spite of her reticence and whatever, finally agreed to speak. As you know, she is an Indian critic, and painter, and maker of documentaries, an eminent scholar on Asian cinema. She has studied cinema in New York and created some films, shot documentaries, has a doctorate from the University of Paris on cinema and censorship, has published a book entitled Liberty and License in the Indian Cinema. The book should be reprinted and should have liberty and license in the Indian society.
Yes.
She's currently director of Ocean's Connoisseurs of Art Private Limited and also one of the trustees of the Public Service Broadcasting Trust in India. She launched Cinemaya in 1988 as a publication that showcases filmmakers from Asia. In 1991, she founded the internationally renowned NetPAC as an organization to forward the cause of Asian films. Since 1990, she has been a resident or jury member of the International Film Festival, including Karlovy Vary, Locarno, Cannes, La Palmas, Busan, Singapore, Fazl, and Antalya. If I mispronounce one of them. She has won various awards, including Korean Cinema Award at the Busan International Festival. She was conferred the Italian Star of Solidarity. 2015 was honored as a Lifetime Achievement Award at the second edition of the International Film Festival of Colombo. At the Hawaii International Festival the same year, Aruna ji won a Vision in Film Award. She was awarded the Star of Italy. She seemed to have more solidarity with Italy than what I thought with France. Anyway, she has also got the Chevalier of the Arts and Letters and some other. So there you are. She is going to talk to you about multiple faces of India's cinemas. The rule of the game is about 45 to 50 minutes, and then it will be open. Will you invite questions? So, Aruna Vasudev, and before you start, may I?
Thanks for that superb introduction. Very flattering introduction. I'm really happy to be here with all of you, and Ashok I've known for so long, and we talked once about starting something together, and I'm still sorry we never did that, but it would have been wonderful. But anyway, now he's got this great organization going. Now, he said, you give a talk on cinema, on Indian cinema. So I thought, what should I talk about? There's so much and so little. Where should we start? Where should we carry on? What to do? you all know Indian cinema, but you know, I was quite astounded once when there was the release of, I did a series of books which I edited, got other people to write on great masters of Indian cinema, and one of them was on P.C. Barua. And this young journalist comes to me at the launch and she said, "Who's P.C. Barua?" So I said, "You're writing on film, you're a journalist, and you don't know who's P.C. Barua?" She said, "No." I said, I just got very upset. And I said, "There's so much great work in India, in the cinema, which people don't know about. So I'm determined to try and change that and do films." But eventually I just shifted to Asia, discovered Asian cinema, and thought, we're all overwhelmed with films from the West. We only see films from Europe, America basically, and we just do not know Asia at all. So then I just shifted my attention to Asia. But India, I wrote actually 2 books. One was this
Liberty and License.
Liberty and License, get the title of my own book. But then later I wrote a book on the new Indian cinema. I wrote a lot about Kumar, who's here now, Kumar Shani. Then after that I stopped and did the magazine and film festivals and so on. But I was always fascinated by the cinema as a form, as a medium, as both entertainment and information, and what you learn of the world and you see it on a film, what you learn about people. It's astounding what cinema can do, which nothing else can do for you. Books cannot do it because you can't visualize what you're reading, except in your own mind. It's your own visualization, but you don't see what the author is writing about. And I thought cinema brings it all together, thoughts, visuals, imagination, everything. What an extraordinary medium it is. I want to learn about cinema. And so many incidents like this. I saw for the first time a film from Hungary, and this was many years ago. I did not know anything about Hungary. What's Hungary? I thought some little town in country in Europe at that time under the auspices of Russia, and I didn't pay attention. I saw this film, I came away astounded. I'll never forget that moment saying, what a country, what a people, I knew nothing about it. And you cannot learn from just reading books or talking to people, but from cinema you can learn so much because it brings it all alive for you. Of course, and as entertainment, there's nothing to equal it, but learning about people, events, countries, ways of living, what can give you a better insight than cinema? And I wanted to talk about the multiple faces of Indian cinema, because actually the only cinema known across the country is the popular Hindi cinema. But in fact, there are so many cinemas in our country that we know little about, because we can't follow the language, and they don't always come with subtitles. But India is like a continent, it's like Europe, the number of languages, the number of cinemas. What you can learn about your own country, about different places in your own country through cinema, you can't learn any other way except by going there yourself, of course. But the cinema brings it all to life. That's why I've always been fascinated by cinema. Unfortunately, we don't get to see films from all over the country in different languages, in every state, in every city in India, because that's not the way it works. But the fact is that this does exist, and this is the greatness of India. I think the country is as big in its imagination and in what it does as Europe. So we can think of India as a continent, not just as a country, but a very united, I hope, country. I hope it will come back to peace and unity. But there are so many cinemas in our country that we know little about, and I think it would be very good if we could get to see films from all over the country in different languages. It's not easy for Hindi speakers to understand films spoken in Telugu, Oriya, even Punjabi, or any of the multiple languages in which filmmakers from across the country are making films and have been doing for many, many years. Almost since cinema began with the first film, Raja Harishchandra by Dada Saheb Phalke, and it's his name in which the biggest national award today is presented annually to a filmmaker. Dada Saheb Phalke, 1900s, what was he doing in Bengal? And what made him want to make a film? It's a fascinating story of that era and that period of how people discovered cinema and wanted to make films, and how did they manage. Even technically, everything had to come from England. There was nothing in India. There was nothing, in fact, in the world. It was all just starting. So he made this Raja Harishchandra. And then in the beginning, as cinema began to develop, they were making films mainly mythologicals, because, and in Bombay is where it all started, thinking that, well, that is something that people will respond to, will understand, mythology, stories of our great gods and goddesses, and people that people know about, rather than taking up other issues. So that's how it all began in Bombay. Then there are so many stories in Indian cinema over the many years since it came into being, with the first feature film being made in Bombay. And there's no clear idea about why it took birth in Bombay. Why not in Calcutta? Why not Lahore in those days? Anywhere. But Bombay is where it started. Perhaps because the ships were coming there, the British were there, and that's where it all landed, and that's where they first saw them. And because otherwise, tell me, why Bombay? You tell me. Why do you think it started in Bombay? No idea. It could have started anywhere, but Bombay is where it took birth. And of course, Bombay is still the center of filmmaking in India. And in the early years, films were mainly mythological, because the average audience, unfamiliar with English, liked to see them, because the British started bringing in a few films which the elegant, upmarket, rich Indians would sometimes see. And they did not see the Indian films. But other forms did start, other filmmakers did start making an experience. Among the most still celebrated were Babura Painter with Sarkari Gwash, the Indian Shylock, and Himanshu Rai's Light of Asia, which remains one of the great films in the history of our cinema. And he made it in 1925 on the life of the Buddha. And with the coming of sound in the 30s, cinema in India grew very rapidly, spreading from Hindi cinema in Bombay to films in different languages across the country. And the silent cinema in 1931 was already 207 films a year. In 1931, every year 207 average films were being made, because it became so popular in those days. Where was the entertainment? Where did you learn about anything except what did you see outside your own village or your own small town or even your own big city? How much did you see of the world, or even of other parts of your country, or get to know anything about outside your own immediate experience? The cinema, that's why I fell in love with cinema. What a fantastic medium it is. It can take you into worlds apart. But then silent cinema, even women directors and producers began to make an experience. Fatma Begum and her daughters were the first female female producer directors. And then, I'm not going to go into details, but they did start to grow. But then came the beginning of the sound film. And cinema spread all over the country. Films were being made, started being made in all the major languages of India. But Hindi films from Bombay were the ones that went across the country. And because they went across the country, people also began to speak Hindi in order to follow the films. That is how, I think, when there were the riots against Hindi, when it was announced that Hindi would be the national language, there were riots in the south. Which year? I don't remember.
66, 15 years after the
independence, 6 years. So people said, no, why should Hindi be the national language? But anyway, how they solved it, settled it politically, they did. But it was because of seeing Hindi films that people were actually learning to speak a little Hindi. And don't forget that. What a powerful medium this is. It did lead to the spread of Hindi across the country because of the cinema, and so we should not disregard it as light entertainment. It's not. It's a very powerful medium. And then but I don't want to go into the whole history, but I just say a little bit. The war years had an effect on India as well, with the terrible famine in Bengal produced by the British, because they took all the food for their soldiers. But Hindi cinema after that emerged in a very big way. And some of the outstanding filmmakers of the time was Mehboob Khan. His film Mother India went worldwide. I think it was the first Indian film nominated for an Oscar. Didn't get it, but still it was there. But what a great film. So did Guru Dutt's films. Pyasa is still a classic, as is Kagaz Ke Phool, both made in the late 50s. Sohrab Modi's Mirza Ghalib, Jhansi Ki Rani, all among the classic, as Raj Kapoor's Avara and Shri 420. And then, I'm not going to go into all that because all of you would know that, such great names who since the 50s and early 60s they've remained in our memory and are still occasionally shown because they were quite remarkable films. And the 50s over the years became known as the golden age of Indian cinema. So much so that Indian directors were asked by neighboring countries like Malaysia to come and make films there. And Indian filmmakers moved across. The Shaw brothers were asked to come and make Malay films in Singapore, and in their first 5 years they appointed only Indian directors to make films in Malay language. B.N. Rao went to Singapore and made several films. He made 9 films in 3 years. The reason they say that Indian directors were invited to neighboring countries was for 2 reasons. One, that the Indian film industry had developed so much, and 2, that they were cheaper than Hollywood directors. And the only directors people knew across the world at that time still was Hollywood. The third reason was the Indians knew English well, and they were familiar with the Malay Peninsula because there was a large number of Indian immigrants there. So quite a lot of the early Malay cinema was made by Indian directors. I don't know if you knew that. Though when I discovered it, I thought, oh, how fascinating, I must try and see their films, but I've not been able to do it so far. But maybe we should do that. Get those Indian films made in Malaysia in the 40s. And meanwhile in India, the film industry had begun to blossom. Many institutes were planned and set up in the 50s, just a few years after independence. In 1951, the Film Inquiry Committee was constituted, the national awards were introduced, the Film Finance Corporation came up very soon after, although the national awards for film started in 1954. In 1961, the Film Institute, and in 1964, the National Film Archive of India. That was the beginning of the recognition of film as an important form. It began to grow and be recognized as a major form, not of art, but of entertainment. The art came also, but in a very small way, and then it started to grow, and later, when I'm coming to that period, which was then 50s, 60s. The 60s was considered a golden era of Indian cinema with some great filmmakers at that time whom I've just named. It was a very exciting time for cinema. But in the early 70s, the world changed. The graduates of the Film Institute, which was set up in Pune, they came up and started to open the film world to a new world of cinema in several Indian languages. Hindi, Bengali, Malayalam, Kannada, Oriya, Assamese, and more. India is one of the few countries in the world where Hollywood doesn't reign supreme, which is something we should be proud of. This is because we make films for our audiences with Indian sensibilities and cultural intricacies. But the cinema that I have really followed and written a book about was the New Indian Cinema, which really changed so much in the country, among audiences, among filmmakers. It suddenly became recognized not as a form simply of entertainment, but as a form of learning, of absorbing things that you didn't know, that it was a serious form of information as well as entertainment. Cinema, there's always an entertaining aspect to cinema. But when it's a serious film and what you learn from what it says is something that there is no other medium that is parallel to it, because it has images, it has sounds, it has ideas, it has so much. And the new, I don't know, so many, how much am I going to talk about? Because it's the new Indian cinema with Kaul and Kumar Shahani just began to infiltrate into the world of even popular cinema when they began to look at it in a slightly different way. The kind of films, see, there were parallel movements even in the new Indian cinema. There was a cinema that was slightly popular, looking at audiences, and there was the cinema of Mani and Kumar who were looking at it as a work of art to express ideas in a way that would make you think, not just entertain you. And it really made a huge impact. Now, at that time, no, not immediately, because people thought, what is this? Don't understand it, what are they talking about? But slowly, over the years, it grew, the audience grew, people were interested, they did want to watch. Younger filmmakers also came out of the institute, came out of learning from these people who started it all, and it came up in many other languages. So it spread all over India. From the Film Institute, Adu Gopalakrishnan, genius, and he went back to Trivandrum and started making films there. The kind of work he did, still doing, is amazing. Aravindan did not go to the film school. He was in Trivandrum, but he was a painter, a musician, he sang, he did so many things. Then he started to make films in Malayalam and made an impact across the thinking audiences that were ready to go, and not just go to cinema to be entertained, but to see something that they didn't know and to learn something and be made to think a bit. That changed the whole idea of what is cinema. It's not just going and laughing and having a good time, which there's nothing wrong with that, but also to make you think a little bit about your life, about life around you, what you can do, what you should do, what you shouldn't do with yourself. And I think what they did, so many other directors then came up out of the film school, and not necessarily from Pune, but across the country this movement spread. And now, over the years, it has changed radically in the sense that a lot of serious films are being shown even in theatres, which never happened earlier. It was very difficult to see films by these young, new filmmakers at first, but then as the film festivals began in the first International Indian Film Festival began in '52, but now there are film festivals across the country and showing everything. So it has changed the audience also. It has made young people who really go to these films in crowds. I've seen it in Trivandrum, in Bangalore, in Calcutta, in Bombay. They all want to go and see this and learn something and come away enriched with the experience of seeing a film. And I think that is what the great quality of cinema is, that you experience something that you will not otherwise in your life be able to experience. I think I'm going to stop and ask a question.
No, let's do that. You have only spoken for 25 minutes.
That's half an hour's enough.
No. Okay.
No, not enough. I've got so much, but I think I don't want to go on too long. I made lots of notes because I forget, but now I don't know what I wanted to tell you. But if you like, we can talk a little more about the cinema, how it grew. I just want to say about Mani, this is the Mani Kaul Memorial Lecture. I knew Mani and Kumar when they just graduated from the film school and were making their first films, and wrote about them also. Known them for such a long time. And Mani, his great strength was his ability to translate his vision into vivid cinematic image, which all great film directors do anyway. But his feeling for the human face is matched by his love for the landscape and the way he used the wide-angle 32mm lens to take close-ups of his suffering heroines to suggest their loneliness, framed against a bright or peaceful landscape, say in Uski Roti, Ashar Ka Ek Din or Duvidha, or his use of the landscape, or his use of the distorting characteristics of a 28mm lens in Idiot to portray the distortions in the life of his protagonists. No, they were technically, all of them, doing very interesting things with the lens and the camera, which normal filmmakers didn't really do, because they were just interested in the image and the story they were telling. But they were interested in transforming the visual moving image into something that expressed what they wanted to express. Now that became a very, very, very interesting phenomenon. And then the serious filmmakers took to looking at the country in a different way, through a different kind of lens, telling you stories, telling you about life in a way that you didn't know or hadn't experienced, or revealing characters in a really way that just you just gasped at something sometimes when you saw what they were saying and what they were doing. And as a result, also because that cinema in different languages, in Marathi, in Tamil, in mainly in Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, no, not so much. There were no great filmmakers in Telugu that I know of. Do you?
SME.
Telugu, I don't know.
SMEs. SMEs.
No, Assam, that was fantastic with Janu Barwa, what he did. He brought Assam into India because what did we know about Assam? But the number of films he made, from the first film that he did to bring Assam into our lives, this is what cinema does. It brings things you don't know into your life. It opens your eyes, it opens your ears, it opens your mind. And that is why I think I have so much regard for cinema as a medium, as a form, not just of sitting and have a good time, which is also nice sometimes, there's no harm in that. But to go and not necessarily be taught a lesson, but through forms, through a nice story told or characters that come to life, that you learn something new, you come away feeling enriched. That is what I've always loved about cinema. But learning something new not in a pedagogic manner, but in a way that you can enjoy it and still come away saying, oh, I didn't know. That is great. Or disturbed, why is that happening? Why should we allow that to happen? No, we must rise up against it. And I think that's what cinema has done a lot in India, across the country. It's really brought us to life. Now, I mean, where do I talk about Satyajit Ray? I mean, he's the first Indian filmmaker to get known internationally. What a great film he made with Pathe Panchali. What a great what should I say, not a great job he did for India, but for India across the world, people began to know a little about India because of Satyajit Ray's films. And when it was first shown in Cannes in 1952, I think, 55, I don't remember the exact date, but it was around that time. And it really changed the attitude of people there towards Indian cinema, and then of course slowly towards India also, because out of India came this great man. And then of course he went on. Then Ritik Ghatak was fabulous, totally different from Ray, parallel, I mean equal, the same, they were the same age, Satyajit Ray, Ritik Ghatak, and Mrinal Sen a little after them. But they really did a lot for India, not just Indian cinema, but for India. So many memories of what was going on at that time in the cinema world, and Kumar and Mani chose to, well, I don't know if they chose to follow Ritik Ghatak, but it was the Ritik Ghatak way of looking at film that you preferred. I think both of you chose to follow, and Ritik Ghatak, alas, did not live for very long. He went, but Satyajit Ray did, and he did so much to make not just Indian cinema, but India known. Because it's through films that you get to know things you don't know anything about. Films that you get to know about other countries. I would just got to go into my discovery of Asian cinema, but I think I'll leave that for the moment. But Indian cinema, what it did for Indians was very important. Now I think it's really necessary that we have either some kind of interpretation, not just subheadings, but some way of being able to see films from Punjab, from Orissa, from Tamil Nadu, from wherever, in not just for private viewings or special viewings for selected audiences, but in cinemas. I don't know why we can't do that. Why can't we do that?
I don't have answers to the question.
But something like that should happen. Anyway, I think slowly it is beginning to, because there are big halls where films are shown in different languages, in Tamil and I know in Malayalam and all. There are big screenings, but they are not public screening where you buy a ticket and go. But it should be possible to have some theatres in each city which will show films from other parts of India, that as a regular thing, not as a special screening. Oh, you're invited to see this Malayalam film, but to have a cinema house that shows films from Bengal, from Orissa, from wherever, Maharashtra, where you can buy a ticket and go and see it. That's what I feel should start happening in the country, even small cinemas. It really would work. All over the country it should be possible to do that, because you really learn so much about life, about the world, about your country, of course, about attitudes, about the meaning of living through cinema, like you cannot with any other media. I'm going to stop there. And we'll talk, but I can come back to more, but I think I've talked enough. I'd like to ask you if you have anything you want to say that we can discuss. Yes?
No, just a minute. Just a minute, please.
Kashmiri or a Tamil?
No, please, because we record. So
Microphone.
Just a minute. And do announce your name.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks. Nilanjan, is his name Mani Kaul or Mani Kaul Ratnam, and is he Tamil or Kashmiri?
Mani Kaul.
Mani Kaul, not Mani Kaul Ratnam.
Mani Ratnam is from Andhra.
He was also a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Secondly, what message, how do you think Indian cinema could solve our current troubled times and our troubled society, which is quite split apart, as you can see with the CAB agitation?
I didn't understand.
Huh?
What did he ask?
Ask it again, please.
Please say
How do
it
you think
again.
Indian cinema could solve our current troubled times and troubled society, which is quite split apart with the CAB crisis, the cab agitation? And one small question. You were talking about going to a cinema hall and buying a ticket and being able to see cinema in different languages. You know, nowadays we have this great tool. I just got a Fire TV stick. You can go on to one of these online film services like Netflix or Amazon and see a film in any Indian language.
But there's
That is
a
brilliant.
difference. But I just want to say, because I feel very strongly about that, but to sit at home alone in front of a screen and watch a film is not the same experience as going into a theatre, the lights come down and you see a film on a big screen. The whole experience is totally different. And it does not make the same impact on you when you're sitting alone and watching it in your little room somewhere. That's why.
But it's better than nothing. I mean, if it's
No, it's better than nothing, but I don't know. I
if
don't
it's
know
not
if it's
showing
better
in the
than
halls, then this is the best.
May I ask? Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. And I wish we could have much more. I'm glad you requested her to go on. And when I was very young, these parallel cinema came up. Nasiruddin Shah, Smita Patil type of movies, and I really loved them. I'm Anu Jindal, I'm an artist, so I really liked them. And recently, I think it must have been Raj Kapoor's birthday. So there was a series of Raj Kapoor films which were coming on one of the channels, and Sangam I saw, and then Mera Naam Joker, and I was struck by how well made they were. They were entertainment, but along with that, the message was pretty profound. The editing was good, the cinematography was so good, the location was so good. So how would you compare this? Like parallel cinema always got all the awards, and this came in the genre of entertainment. So how would you
No, the entertainment films are very good technically, and some of them are really outstanding. Miranam Joker is considered one of the big films in the history of Indian cinema, so it's definitely recognized, absolutely recognized. The awards is a different matter. The awards started later, and then I think they were trying to encourage younger people and a different kind of cinema to come up, and awards were given. But now there's no difference made between parallel cinema and popular cinema. Popular, I couldn't think of the word. Popular cinema also. And some of those popular films are now technically on parallel with the art cinema. They're very, very good in all ways, technically. Then what the subject is, of course, a different matter. That's up to them to choose. But technically excellent. Yes.
The national awards rigged or are they fair? The national awards, are they rigged or are they fair?
Ask the giver of the national awards. I don't know. You'll have to ask them.
I'm Rajiv Kumar Shukla. This morning there was this function, National Awards function, about which, there was an interesting comment. So I just thought two things here interested me. One was that the writing on Indian cinema, in that category a book was awarded, which was on G. Arvindan, who has been called the Shakespeare of cinema by Chidaranand Das Gupta. So it was this writing on cinema, serious writing on cinema. Do you think it has evolved as much as it should have? Another interesting thing was that in the non-feature film category, they had this film by the debut director. So there was this film on the 50 years of Feluda, the character created by Satyajit Ray. So 2017 was the year when the 50 years completed. So it was a beautiful film. He has made it was awarded today, where the radio and television and film clippings have been used. So I think these are new genres which are emerging. A film character being celebrated by a film. So I think that was a very interesting thing. The second thing is, I think you have to some extent already said it. There is a new crop of directors who have lessened the chasm between the so-called art cinema or some parallel cinema with the popular cinema. So we have the young directors, young people who are doing very good films, realistic films also. And there is a projection of the Raj Kapoor kind of socialistic films into Rajkumar Hirani kind of films. So are you hopeful that Indian cinema is going to remain as socially relevant as it was expected to be?
I think the cinema is becoming more socially relevant than it ever was before, because even the popular filmmakers are trying to say something in a very subtle, low manner, but there is a message that does come, and I think it's because people in general are more aware of what's going on in the world, and they would rather see that than just be entertained. That's my opinion. You were good.
You mentioned about Mehboob Khan's Mother India. No doubt it was viewed as a landmark movie abroad. But the movie which really caught attention of the Western audience was Mehboob Khan's Aunt. For that movie, Cecil B. DeMille wrote to Mehboob Khan complimenting him, and it was viewed as the Indian counterpart of Taming of the Shrew and also Quo Vadis, which are very good movies from the Western side. Now this is not the question. My question actually is that you mentioned about the golden period of the Indian movies. Now looking at present, viewing the present state of affairs, I feel very apprehensive whether the golden period will ever come back to our country, because we don't have producers of the caliber of Gurudat and Mehboob Khan, Asif, B.R. Chopra and a few others who knew the art of filmmaking very well, and they were related to the Indian ethos. Do you feel that something will happen and we'll get to see movies which will linger in our memory?
Yes, I think we will, because I think young people have got a lot of imagination, a lot of commitment, and the technology has changed so much also, because now they're even making films with those, what do they call, those little computer things that you carry around. I've actually seen films made by 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, a very serious film using just that. How are they doing it? What are they doing? We are living in a new age. You cannot talk of the great directors of the 50s and 60s and even later in the cinema world, because the technology was so different. But now with the new technology, it's a new world that is coming into being. And I think they can do it. I think, yes, I think young people today have so much zest and talent and ideas, and it's a different kind of world. Yes, I think it's going to happen. It will happen.
When you talk about the golden period...
Your name, please.
I'm Vichitra. Okay.
Oh.
When the golden period, what the essence of the golden period, I don't know, as I see it, was romance, music, lyrics. What has happened to all that in today's cinema?
Romance, music, lyrics are still very present in today's cinema. It's very much all there. No? He's agreeing. Of course it's there, Vichitra. I don't think you've been seeing many films recently, so you don't know. That hasn't gone away. Still, no, it's still very much there.
Technical romance.
No. But of course the way we live, the kind of way relationships develop and break up, it's different. So even in cinema it is different. But there are still very romantic films. I've not really seen, but I know there's still very romantic films still being made, and huge, and a lot of music, and hugely popular. That will never go away, I don't think.
Yes.
I'm Amarnath. It was good somebody mentioned Chitananda Das Gupta, because he made that amazing film called Rakta. Did you see that? It was such an amazing film, but somehow he just got forgotten because, Ray came from Bengal, so his films were never seen. But if you get a chance to see that film called Rakta.
What was the title?
Blood, Rakta. Rakta. It was a really brilliant film. I happened to see it because he said you come and see it. It was never distributed, was never seen. But if you look at it in the context of cinema those days, it was, I think, as good as the Ray films and even better than some of them.
I don't remember that film. I remember other films that he made. He was a very close friend, and I don't remember the film. But in those days, those kind of films were not so easily shown in theatres or distributed. Distributors were not willing to take them because they were only looking for money from audiences who will come into the theatre, and they thought audiences won't be there for that serious kind of cinema. In fact, they are there, but they were not there in such large numbers, and they didn't go. It's a fact. You remember, Kumar, films, your kind of films would not get into theatres because people were afraid they wouldn't.
Never got a release.
Never got a release. And then I remember talking to Doordarshan at one time and saying, in the early years when you were all just starting, had started, I said, Doordarshan, why are these films, a lot of them supported by the FFC, Film Finance Corporation, why don't you show at least once a week one film and have a discussion with the director, to get them known, to get the films known, to get audiences to see them? And they said, oh, who's going to see them? I went down, I was very stubborn those days. I went down, and then when they did start, so the award-winning film they would show on Doordarshan on a Sunday afternoon and have a discussion with the director. But they didn't keep it up. But otherwise they did not get released in theatres, so how were people to see them?
No, your idea is theoretically very good, but if the government can do that, because PVR and all are looking at the commerce of it, but there's a lot of cinemas which are never used could run a program like that, which people like you could suggest and see when it works. And if each state was to get behind it, if Bengal was to say we're having our thing because so many states, I think it would be a great thing for regional cinema with subtitles. And the pleasure of the écran, like they say in Paris, the joy of going to cinema.
I'm Sunita Kohli. Aruna, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the Ghatak and Satyajit Ray. Why, in your opinion, you can still find Satyajit Ray films, but it's very, very difficult to find a Ghatak film unless one has really made a huge effort and has got it from somewhere. It's not shown. In my opinion, he was as great a filmmaker. And that's what I think. Why, in your opinion, did he not get his place in the sun?
I think Vivek Ghatak was really revered as a filmmaker, but it still didn't reach as wide a public as Satyajit Ray. Why? Let Kumar answer that. Kumar is a disciple of Vivek Ghatak's in a way. So you answer that, Kumar. Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that question, actually, because Hrithik was actually more or less rediscovered by us, that is those who went to the Film Institute and who wanted to dissent, that was his greatest quality. He was a compulsive dissenter, and that is what attracted all of us to him. He did not accept any line given to him, whether it was from the state or the Communist Party or the culture, Bhadralok culture of Bengal. He was also a refugee. He came from Dhaka, and what he taught us was to continue the struggle for independence. That means in every shot that we tried to take, I think I'm speaking for a number of people who were his students, we wanted to continue the struggle for independence. And I think that is the most worthwhile thing to do. And that continuing of the struggle meant freeing the imagination, something which Aruna was saying throughout her discourse, was that cinema is capable of doing that more than any other art, because all the arts are in it. So the point is to free the imagination. And today, in fact, there is a very, very great challenge to the imagination, especially because of the nature of the movement of capital, which is moving too fast and which is also in the hands of very few people. 5% apparently of the globe, 5% of the people control 95% of the resources that are available. And that has meant that there is a threat to the youth of the whole world. They won't find jobs anymore. The jobs have been taken over by technology, which is moving at a terrific speed. And its promise is very great. And therefore, actually, it should be there to release the imagination. But the other thing is happening. It's the opposite which is happening, which is very unfortunate. That's it.
There's a question there. Why don't you come up a little in front?
Hi ma'am, I'm Mehak. And you mentioned about the popular and the, the parallel cinema, and since then I've been thinking about it, about how it was that the popular and the parallel cinema that used to be to a degree very defined separate streams sort of came to merge together in Indian cinema. And I was thinking about the Angry Young Man era, about how there were very socialist films coming out that were also very popular films. And I was wondering if if you would perhaps probably know better about when it was in our film history, or how it was that these two different streams of thought sort of came together. And the second part of my question was, I was also wondering what that would mean for cinema, because our our parallel cinema was known, as you said, as you spoke about Manikal's experimental technological innovations, and many other filmmakers also who would make films that would look different. I mean, as is known of most parallel movements across the world. So, do you think the experimentation, the innovation factor that seemed to exist much more in parallel cinema than popular cinema, do you think that was lost somewhere with the merging of these two fields together?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, popular cinema and parallel cinema in the early days were very different, because the parallel cinema was taking up issues, ideas, thoughts that they wanted to convey to the audience, that they wanted to communicate their ideas to an audience. Popular cinema was only concerned with making people laugh and be happy and go away feeling, oh, I've had a great time. But today, it's a new world, things are changing. You can have both. In the popular cinema, you can bring in ideas, you can raise issues. They are doing it also. I have not been watching many popular films because I've never been really that interested in just entertainment. But I find now that the entertainment also has some thoughts going into their films. Not very much, but it is happening. The serious cinema remains a serious cinema. It's not going to interject it with dance performances and popular dance and song. That they won't do. But there are things that the serious cinema is also not necessarily following a very strict form of being very serious and not going into anything parallel at all. They are also bringing in, there is what we used to call the popular cinema and serious cinema, and the क्या था?
Middle of the road cinema. Vimal Roy and Shrish Mukherjee and that kind of cinema.
No, but that kind, and later also at the time of Kumar and Mani and all, then there was another middle cinema. I would put in people like even Shyam Benegal, who was a serious filmmaker, but was a slightly lighter one, that also kept you amused and thinking and laughing, and but taking up serious issues at the same time. That those days was called the middle cinema, the middle way. And I think that is going to probably take over more, that you have entertainment, you have popularity, but you also put in a few thoughts to make people go a little bit about something, I hope.
I'm glad you said that, some of the popular filmmakers of those days also made relevant movies, and they were very good ones.
Yes.
I like Vimal Roy's Dobika Zameen,
Yes.
and Raj Kapoor's Good Polish, and B.R. Chopra made some great movies like Naya Dog and all that. So to say that the popular movies didn't take up socially relevant issues is wrong. And very frankly, some of the parallel cinemas were very boring.
No.
Not all of them. I'm not saying all of them. The Kumar made the movie, Mani Kaul made the movie, but some of them were really bad. I must say. So to say that the division was there. They made some good movies like Get 'em Off. That was wonderful.
Oh yes, I wanted to talk about Garam Hawa. Yeah.
They're both popular as well as, parallel cinema.
Yeah, Garam Hawa was really special, and it was turned down by the censor board, and he had a lot of trouble with it, and I'm told that it was finally went to Mrs. Gandhi and she approved it. Otherwise, everyone had said no.
Any questions?
What made Sholay the longest running Indian film? What made Sholay the longest running Indian film?
Surely, yes, I think so.
So is Bobby.
Well, it was very well made. It was very, very entertaining. But it also had something to say that you wanted to listen to, that you wanted to think about. But technically, it was so beautifully made. It just appealed to everybody.
But it had none of the socialist elements of Do Bigha Zameen and Garam Hawa. You know, passionate Mother India, passionately nationalistic film. This was a film about villainy and, getting the bad guys. So it was more like an Indian version of a Western.
Yeah, Texas film.
Yeah.
I
So,
thought
what
Dilwale
made it-
Dulhania.
Sorry?
I thought Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge was the longest running film. I was just reading.
No, I think it was Sholay.
Yeah.
Sholay.
2 years or 3 times.
No. Just. Yes.
That's okay.
The most seen movie of all time is Avara. All of Russia, all of China, everybody said, more people have seen Avara than Gone with the Wind. And it still stands as the most seen movie of all time.
Yes, I think it is. It is.
So how do you think this PVR system, because what has happened is, in Delhi in particular I can say, earlier, for instance, Sholay was released in 1975. I was a student at BSU at that time, and I saw it in its 25th week at Varanasi. So it ran for Golden Jubilee, of course, 50 weeks. Today the problem is that the film is released. If you don't catch it in a hall in 2 or 3 weeks, you miss it. After that, it's gone. Either you have to travel unholy distances and unholy hours. The kind of shows. So basically, that you said watching film in a cinema hall is a different experience. Absolutely true. It's a totally different experience, and that is the true experience of watching cinema. But it has become more and more difficult because now you see the great 100 crore club, but after 3 weeks they are not available.
Yeah, that's very true, but that's part of our changing world, the world we're living in. It's all changing, and that's, you have to cope with it.
Is that Mr. Kaul sitting there at the back who made 27 down? No.
He died. Avatar Kaul. He made that first film, he died after that.
Oh, yeah. But you were in it. You're that day. Yeah, that's right. You did just 27 down. That's
Yeah.
My
Bolo.
grandson has just looked at Google and found that Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge
He
is
died
the
at
longest
White.
running film.
He drowned. No, he
He's
drowned.
the longest running film. Acha, okay. Okay. That's all.
Well, friends, we come to the end of this evening, but I also speak to you as a producer of 2 films, one by Kumar Shahani on Khayal Gatha, and the other, Satay Se Uthta Aadmi by Mani Kaul. And these 2 films, apart from the fact that they took the medium seriously, that is, the medium itself was part of the theme. It was not just an instrument to communicate something. The medium itself was a part of the thematic design of the 2 films. They were 2 very different films. Mani Kaul's films was trying to look at Mukti Bodh. Mukti Bodh was a very major Hindi writer who died at the age of 47, and I was one of the persons who used to believe
that if there are 7 persons who understand Mukti Bodh, I am one of them. Until I met Mani Kaul. And Mani Kaul, in 2 hours conversation, I realized that he knew so much of Mukti Bodh and so well. So, in spite of the fact that we had no money and we had no desire to produce a film, I got somehow some money as a civil servant, and Satay Swift Army was produced. When it was shown here in Triveni, people were willing to beat Mani Kaul. And now, in the Mani Kaul repertoire, it is supposed to be his best film, the most representative. Nobody in popular cinema or anywhere else would have made a film on a very difficult writer like Mani Kaul. It was chosen for Cannes, in that section, a certain regard. And after that, Louis Canoli, or what was the name of that Le Monde film critic, he was in the audience when there was a question answer, and he says, are you trying to say that these words were written by someone so many years ago who was living in a small town in India? And that was a fact, because Mukti Bodh was living in Rajnandgaon. The name itself has Gaon in it. So it was a small, and there he wrote those lines, and we got a very good review in Le Monde. The second film was done by Kumar, called Khayal Gatha. How the rigidities of Dhrupad gave way to the freedom of Khayal. Now, this is a theme which no popular filmmaker would ever dream of. And the film again had run into difficulties because we had a stupid chairman of the Madhya Pradesh Film Finance Corporation, etc., etc. But these were the films which are not merely whether socially relevant, and all this is fine because anything popular seems to be socially relevant. This, I think, is a wrong notion. There are many things which are socially relevant in the first place, which are not popular. Secondly, I don't think to be socially relevant is the business of art. It may not. Some of the greatest writers and greatest works of art have never been socially relevant.
No, it's the imagination.
So that's one. The third thing is that these filmmakers brought not only a new sense of the medium, cinema, but they also brought a new sense of patience in enjoying art. So it is not something that you run away, you got the message and finish. And fourthly, they brought aspects of Indian reality into focus, which was never touched by anything, neither in literature, nor in cinema, nor in music, for instance, to take the 3 instances. So I think, you have to look at cinema, not merely whatever may be the burden or the load of popularity or entertainment on it. Those who want to be entertained, let them be entertained. But it's like in literature, in Hindi poetry for instance, you have people who are very popular, Dr. Biswas and such like, they charge 3 lakhs of rupees. Nobody takes them seriously. Neeraj, whom Uma Sharma alone takes seriously, nobody takes, although they got Padma Bhushan and all this rubbish, it doesn't matter. The significant writers are people like Mukti Bodh, etc., who were always different and difficult and complex because they are dealing with reality which is very complex. So this idea in Hindi, the popular poets are like film singers, they're very good, they are very influential, they're close of people. But the real music is the classical music.
Yeah.
And there you don't have this burden. And there are people like Amir Khan and Kumar Gandhar who could, Mallikarjun Mansur, who could care 2 hoots of what the audience was responding or not responding. Somebody asked Mallikarjun Mansur in Bhopal कि पंडित जी जब आप गा रहे हो तो कोई सही वक्त पे दाद देने वाला सामने बैठा हो तो इससे आपके गाने में कोई फर्क पड़ता है? उनका नहीं नहीं, ये तो आजकल अशोक वाजपेयी वगैरह ने हमारा झंडा ऊंचा उठा दिया तो लोग आने लगे, पहले तो हमारा नाम अनाउंस होता था हॉल खाली। हमारा काम है गाना, उसका काम है सुनना, सुने तो ठीक है, नहीं सुने तो हमें क्या फर्क पड़ता है? And he said it without bitterness.
But I think this is what filmmakers would also like to do. They
And
want to
some
make
of
what
them
they want
did.
to make
That's what I'm
and
trying to
want to express their things. And but if they don't have an audience, then they cannot work anymore. That is the problem.
That's the problem of the
Finance.
the
They won't
finance.
get
Yes,
the money
that's
to
a
do it.
different issue.
That's the
But
problem.
at the level of the aesthetics and the structural, you know, I think it is their right. You see, the moment in art you stop experimenting, daring, exceeding the fixed limits and conventions, art will be dead.
Of course, but cinema.
So, anyway, thank you very much for all of you to have come to brave this cold. Oh, you wanted to say something? Yeah, sure.
Fifth point which you said, this is the cinema which gave us a recognition in the international cinemas, where the art matters, or the serious cinema matters. If you compare it with the business modules which Bombay churn, Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, you don't have to compare them. You don't need to compare them because they use a camera. But so their principles are different. The motives are different. The thrust, for example, I worked with Kumar, I worked with many others. Their whole agenda is different of filmmaking. It's not just an actor is there, therefore actor has to be good, glorified, or song has to be glorified. It's a different grammar. And they were breaking the grammar of existing grammar that was frontally attacking it. Position of the cameras was very different from the position of the other Bombay filmmakers take. That is what is to be understood.
Isn't that
But
great?
I also understand another thing is that it is not that none of these films are not available. There are small film schools all over now, and they watch these films. You can get these films easily now.
Yes. Yes.
I was saying that you're saying art, defining it into popular cinema and into art cinema, and how difficult you spoke of. It's a different problem of finance, but isn't that the problem today across the arts, that the classical arts will not find a financier or a sponsor as quickly as something which is in popular domain?
Well, that is true. That is true. But that's why we in the Raza Foundation trying to do our bits within the financial constraints we have. I think the foundation is trying to do that precisely. Both create a body of critical thinking about the arts, publicly shared, and secondly, to promote younger people. I don't want to get into those details, but we have a running series of providing forum and platform and opportunity to young classical musicians and young classical dancers. We've already done it for about 40 persons from all over the country. We have a scheme under which we have two two exhibitions done every year, one curated by a senior artist and one curated by a young, and of young artists only, except of their choice. 3, we do a thing for the younger writers of Hindi, a thing called Yuva. For 2 days, about 60 writers from all over the country are picked up and they come and work, speak on. This time it was on Gandhi, for instance. So, we're trying to do that precisely. So, thank you very much.